Here's Johnny.
But what I do have are very particular set of skills. Why so serious?
Go ahead. Make my day.
Yeah.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
What? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
And like that, he's gone.
Cool. Well, Dustin and Jon, thank you for doing this.
Sure.
This is kind of a new side project I'm working on. I think a lot of people are interested in the day-to-day work in the film industry, but we tend to hear more things, that are happening on set. But, as you guys know, a lot of the real important work happens outside of the production work. So I'm kind of chatting with some people that work in film to learn more about what the day-to-day life is for a filmmaker.
Okay.
So first, when people ask you what you do for a living, how do you specifically answer that?
I just tell them that I'm a videographer, professional videographer. I tell them I work for Kent State University. Jon and I both work for the same department here. We produce media content for Kent State, marketing, promotional videos, that sort of thing. And then on the side, I'll usually follow up by saying, and for fun, I like to make films and that sort of thing.
I had the same exact job, so I pretty much say the same thing. Usually,
Yeah.
Usually, I kind of throw in we focus a lot on social media distribution now. It's just how things are now. I mean, you find videos through Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. You're not necessarily, especially with the age of students we're targeting, usually you're not going to reach them on television. Like, that's how you reach out to their parents, not the students anymore. So
yeah.
So is it fair to say that you guys do as much or more work promoting the videos than you actually do making them?
On our end, no.
No.
We spend much more time actually producing the videos. As far as distribution goes, we actually upload them to YouTube ourselves, but we have a social media manager that works here in our office and other people that will also help distribute the content. So the whole office kind of works together for things like that.
Gotcha. So you can primarily focus on actual filmmaking.
Yep.
Having a regular day job in film, I think, is not the case for most independent filmmakers, at least, because there's a lot of people freelancing or even just making films for fun in addition to a kind of unrelated day job.
Right.
Do you guys find that working on films all the time for your day job for someone else, does that take the magic out of making movies at all?
I don't think so. I mean, we really, every year we at least try to do one project. Sometimes it ends up being a 40-hour film project, which I skipped out on this year. Sorry about that, Brian. I was lazy. But I think when we're actually on set doing something that's not for Kent State, like, the fun's still there. It's not like we feel like we're doing our job. The type of it helps that the type of content's a lot different. Like, when we want to shoot a short film, that's a creative outlet for us because there really aren't any boundaries to making a short film. And obviously here we have to stick to what's necessary for promoting the university, which a lot of times that can be pretty dry content, so that we don't have to write scripts for or anything. But I guess what we do here is more often documentary style, and it's still fun to make short films.
Yeah, and there's overlap too. I mean, and there's some things that we learn here at work. Trying different filming methods or editing methods that we could carry over into our more creative side stuff, and vice versa. We might learn something while we're making a film, that might help us do our job here at Kent State better. They kind of feed into each other like that. But I agree with Jon. Like, I don't feel like our work here kind of drags down like the fun of making, our film stuff on the side.
What kind of career path led each of you guys to Kent State?
I guess I should answer that one because I'm part of the reason why Dustin ended up at Kent State.
Yeah, true.
Dustin and I both studied at Kent State. Kent State doesn't have an official film school, but we both went through the program that's the closest analog to a film school, and at the time it was called electronic media production. It's now called digital media production. And at the time you could focus on video or audio. Both Dustin and I focused on video. He graduated about a year before me and worked at a couple places between graduating in Kent. I, however, worked in this very office as a student and went through every level of employee possible, from student to intern to temporary employee to full-time permanent employee. So what really helped me was working here as a student before I graduated, because they obviously were comfortable with my work and knew what I could do by the time I needed a full-time job. I actually went to Iraq for a year. I was in the Army Reserve. I went to Iraq in 2010. I was deployed. And I asked Dustin if he wanted to fill in while I was gone.
And we had known each other.
Yeah, we had worked.
We had known each other through the program. We never took classes together, I don't think. But
no, we knew each other through knowing the same people, I think.
Right. So it just kind of worked out that I was freelancing at the same time at Kent. And Jon just kind of called me up one day and was like, "Hey, do you want a job for like the next year?" And I was like, "Sure, I'm freelancing right now. I don't have anything steady after my contract is up." So Jon got shipped out on pretty short notice, so I filled in for him while he was away. And after he came back from serving his tour, they sort of just kept me on. And I've been here ever since. I do actually still get a paycheck. It's not like I just keep showing up like Office Space, and they don't pay me. But
keep them over in Storage B.
Right. I got a swing line stapler and everything.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a job perk, I guess. Right. How many years has it been for each of you?
It'll be 8 years for me in December, full time.
And I've been here since January 2010, so that'd be, 6.5 years, something like that.
What's a typical day like? Or is there a typical day?
It's pretty standard. I mean, we have our flow, like our busy times kind of coincide with when a new school year starts, so right now actually is a really busy time for us. August and September is right when the new fall semester starts, so we get a lot more departments from all over campus asking us to produce videos for back to school events and that sort of thing. We make stuff out of our own office that has to get produced anyways. It's not like we're getting requests from departments for it. We just have to make it. Summers kind of slow down for us, but we do work year-round. We don't get the summers off, unfortunately, like faculty do. But in a typical week, we'll have meetings at the beginning of the week talking about new projects that we're taking on. We'll usually go out and shoot a couple throughout the week. Jon and I are usually editing separate projects. There really aren't projects that we both share edits on. Like we'll shoot stuff together almost all the time, but editing is more of like a
individual sport.
Yeah, it's a solo thing. You can't really co-op editing very easily,
at least with our system.
Yeah, because Jon works on Apple's Final Cut and I'm on Premiere Pro, so we're
both stingy in our
right
ways. But But yeah, a typical day is really, I mean, we're mostly an office job because there's so much, I mean, in film production, the majority of it is pre-production and post-production, at least for a lot of the interview-based videos that we do. I mean, you'll go and do a half-hour interview and then you'll spend a day or two editing it afterwards. So yeah, I mean, all day today I'm in the office. I'm not shooting anything, but last couple of weeks I've been out on a lot of shoots because I have a video I'm working on right now that's only a minute and a half long, has 26 scenes in it, so yeah, it's been a pain.
Wow. That's a lot for a minute and a half. Are you guys, did you say you were writing these as well, or are these coming from the departments, or is it like a collaborative?
Yeah, it's usually a collaborative thing. Most of the stuff that we make here at Kent isn't there's no script for it. So for example, we would go out and next weekend there's a big we have our back to school blast off for all the students coming back to school, and they have a bunch of events going on for that. So we'll go out and just cover it like a documentary and assemble all the footage together and make like a little short sizzle recap video. It'll probably be like 1 or 2 minutes long. Another thing, for example, just the other day we went out and interviewed Ben Curtis, who was the golfer from, I think he graduated in 2000, 2002
yeah, he was
or something.
on the Kent State golf team.
Yeah, he won the British Open back in like
2002
or 03, and we interviewed him for a video for the president's office that we're going to be doing next week. But there's, we'll work on questions to ask, for interviewees and stuff. But for the most part, I'd say probably 3/4 of our content isn't scripted. It's just interview based, or we just go out and shoot footage.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned doing projects outside of your regular work. Are these like strictly for fun or for creativity?
Well, every year we try to get tickets to the Cleveland International Film Festival, and
the easiest way for us to do that is just to make a good film.
yeah,
we'd rather just make a good movie that can get into the festival than spend
pay hundreds of dollars for
an all access pass.
Yeah.
Well, for us, that's the easiest way to do it, is just to make a good film every year.
But there's at least 3 of us who want to go, and you only get 2 tickets per film. So we try to make 2 good films per year. Right. So that you only get 2 tickets per film.
We're behind
now
for this year.
Well, it's still summer. So.
Yeah, we so for side projects, like we'll still do side freelance jobs occasionally. Like John and I will shoot weddings together. That's just for just to make some extra money. But for actual fun creative stuff, this year I've helped out on 2 or 3 films that I didn't direct, but I got to work on them with some other filmmakers. A lot of them I've met through the 48-hour film project. A lot of local filmmakers. I've directed a couple things this year so far as well, so hoping to get 1 or 2 more later this year, but we'll see.
I think we've only made 1 official fully Maple Films.
Yeah, we did a music video
Right.
about a month ago.
On the Sony?
Yeah, it was called Night Drive. About 2 guys driving around Cleveland at night in a sports car.
Now, you have to constantly come up with new content on a regular basis between your creative work and your day job. So do you do anything to kind of develop creative habits, or do you feel like these things just naturally come to you because that's your personality?
I don't try to. I don't know. I'm just doing my job, so I do what I gotta do to. We do of course watch a lot of movies and TV, and there's sometimes you'll see influences from that, but which isn't too bad of a gig to have, I suppose.
For me, for the creative stuff, at least on the side, the biggest thing that I guess inspires me is one, watching, like Jon said, watching other movies and getting ideas from them. But I get a lot of inspiration just listening to music. Like if my iPod is probably 2/3 of it is probably movie scores.
Yeah.
So I'll just listen to movie scores or like classical music or whatever, and just sort of get ideas in my head for a new idea that I might kick around. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't turn into anything, but creatively, at least, that's kind of what inspires me the most.
At least 2 of those ideas materialized into actual films,
right?
I know, because 20th Century Man was a silent film that Dustin got an idea for while listening to the score, which we actually used for that film, and then
same thing for Night Drive.
Night Drive was the same thing. Yeah.
I just I listen to a lot of synthwave music. It's like what you would hear on the score for Stranger Things. That kind of like 80s style synth-based music. There's like a whole subculture of artists out there that make this music, and a lot of them are just willing to let you use them, as long as you ask for permission and you give them credit for it. And that's what we did with Night Drive, basically.
Right.
So the same artist who composed music for Drive, the film, let us use their songs for free for Night Drive,
right?
Which is pretty cool.
Drive with what's his face?
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling's
Yep.
name.
Yep.
Oh, very cool. I watched the film, but I didn't make that connection.
Yeah, the group, there's 2 songs in there. The first group is College, and the song that we used in there is a remix done by another group called Anorak. And then the end credits had a separate song, but yeah, College was the band that worked on Drive with Ryan Gosling.
And do you think a lot of the musicians or bands are receptive to, projects like the ones you were doing?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I sent them links to the video after we had finished it. And just kind of said, we made this short film music video for fun. We wanted to use your song because we think it's awesome. I hope you like it. And within minutes, like all 3 bands responded and were like, "Oh yeah, we love it. It's great." They shared it on their Facebook pages and stuff. It's not like we're trying to make money off of this. It's just for fun.
And it helps that these are indie bands that have fairly. I mean, College has a pretty decent following for that subculture music, but it's still not like
mainstream.
It's not Miley Cyrus here that we're trying to ask for music from,
right?
Which you're going to get nothing out of, I'm sure.
Not that we would ever make a Maple Films video with Miley Cyrus.
Killed a lot of ideas we had, so we can use her music.
I'm sure. So, how do you find the time to work on the side projects?
Sometimes we don't.
Yeah, you make time. Most of it's weekend stuff.
Yeah,
if you have weekends open. I think our biggest problem is just getting motivated enough to actually do it. Like Jon said, we're more likely to do maybe 1 or 2 projects a year than. Well, let me rephrase that. We're probably not going to make more than 1 or 2 films a year, and I'm trying to be a little bit more prolific this year, just because I've got more. I guess I've got more of a creative itch, at least this year, than I have in years past. Just because there's so many people out there in Cleveland that I want to work with, and I like collaborating with newer filmmakers, guys that maybe haven't been around for too long, and then there's other people that we've known for a few years that we keep saying, "Oh, hey, we should work together on a film," but we never do. So I'm trying to buck that trend by actually getting out and making new stuff.
Dustin also has a baby due on January 1st, so his life's over after that. So.
I've got a deadline. Jon had his first kid in the middle of the 48-hour film project last year, and he hasn't made anything since. So
I helped on Night Drive.
I took that as a warning. So I'm trying to get as much out of my system before the baby comes.
Well, it's tough. It's tough, especially with the newborn. You know, I have kids, but they're older now, so
They can be in your films now.
how do you choose which side projects you want to work on? Just whatever.
Yeah, it's usually whatever idea gets developed enough to be worthy of being made. I mean, we kind of have a internal mantra at Maple Films not to make something that's not worth making. So
Yeah.
we have a high bar to get over before it's even worth rolling the camera.
Right. Because if you're going to spend the time and effort to make something, like, you want it to be as good as you possibly can. And for us, at least, the most important part to any film that we do is the story. And a lot of people, I think, kind of forget that story is where everything starts and where it ends. And I would rather have good storytelling in our film than any other aspect, like good music, good cinematography, good acting.
Right.
Like a good story is what you really need to make something memorable.
Right, because that's really what filmmaking is anyway. It's just telling a story in a different medium.
And that's what people connect to the most. You know, you can kind of get away with lower production values if your story is really solid most of the time, and your audio is good.
Gotta be able to hear and at least hear and see what's happening.
Right.
Getting into some of the specific side projects, you guys worked on a Lord of the Rings fan film a few years ago. How did that come about? What's the story behind that?
That was, that's mine.
That was Dustin's personal project.
This is, that's been, all right, so I'll start from the top. It's a fan edit of the Hobbit trilogy. So Peter Jackson's Hobbit trilogy, which came out, I think the first one came out in 2012. Then there were two others after that in 2013 and 14. They were not very well received, especially compared to the Lord of the Rings movies, which won Best Picture and considered classic fantasy films. The Hobbit just wasn't as good because what they did was they took a relatively small children's fantasy novel and stretched it into 3 overstuffed action films, which didn't really fit the spirit of the novel like J.R.R. Tolkien had originally written. So I think I decided sometime between the first and second films came out that, well, I thought maybe it would be a cool idea to try to cut out some of the unnecessary scenes and subplots in the films and make a shorter version of it that was closer to the book. So I started working on this back in, I would probably say, like early 2013 maybe, so 2.5, 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it just turned into a bigger and bigger project as I went along, because I originally wanted to just make it for myself and maybe for a few friends that might be interested in getting a copy of it. But I put a few clips online, and people online started catching on to it, and before I knew it, thousands of people are asking, oh, are you going to make this available when you're done, and can we see it? Or I'd love to see it. And it just turned into this huge thing. So I had to realize at that point, well, I wasn't just making it for myself anymore. I almost felt like I owed it to a lot of disgruntled Hobbit fans that didn't like how the original versions turned out, that maybe they wanted to see the same version that I wanted to see. And
I think Dustin, I didn't help Dustin out at all other than watching it when it was done. But he did an amazing job. There's actually a couple other guys online who are doing the same thing he was at the same time. And unfortunately, Dustin wasn't the first person to announce his fully cut version of all 3 films, because a guy who used bootlegs as a source material beat him to the punch. And he wasn't a very good editor, so he was okay. But Dustin's version was a lot cleaner. It was from Blu-ray Masters.
Right. That was the other thing. I wanted to be the best quality version possible. So you could almost feel like if you put it in a DVD box and put it on your shelf in your house, that it would feel like it was an actual version of the film.
Yeah.
So I took the Blu-ray extended cuts of the films and edited it in full HD with 5.1 surround sound and everything. So it's, people may have different versions out there that they prefer, but on a technical level, I think this is probably the best fan edit of The Hobbit that's floating around online right now.
Yours is probably the only one that has actual, like, you changed some of the visual effects and did some color correction.
Yeah. It was way more work than I anticipated. I would definitely say I worked. This was the largest project I've undertaken on the creative side, like more than any actual film that I've directed myself. So,
in an interesting side note, Martin Friedman, who plays the Hobbit, he was in the International 48-Hour Film winner about.
Yeah,
he was a mime.
The mime, yeah.
Yeah. When we saw that was. I think that was like the first year we did it. It was like 2011.
It was.
I think it was before The Hobbit had even come out. But we still knew. I still recognized him from his other movies, like he was in the original Office and everything.
Yeah. And
we saw the film that won like the grand prize for the 48 that year, and we're like, oh come on, that's not even fair. They got Martin Freeman in their movie. If we had Tom Hanks, we'd be a shoo-in every year.
Yeah.
Now, did you feel like there were special challenges working on this because of the copyrighted characters and stories?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, fan edits are kind of it's a gray legal area because it's not an officially condoned version of a studio's copyrighted material. So you have to be really careful about how you present that, especially once you put that online and share it to other people. Like, it's already an issue if I were to rip the films myself and keep it to myself. I'm probably not going to get in any trouble with that. But once I share it with other people, I could get potentially sued, and it's still a very real possibility. But so far, I've managed to dodge that bullet. But what I stress with people that want to view the fan edit is, I hope that they would own all 3 films beforehand before actually watching it, because that way you're still not financially damaging the copyright owners. So if you own all the films ahead of time, it's not like they're losing any money by watching this version of the film.
Sure, it's just kind of a different interpretation of it.
Right, and it's not like I have it on YouTube available to watch for free. Like, you have to go through some hoops to actually get it.
Gotcha. Now, you had another film, kind of a longer short film called The Astronomer that was in a bunch of festivals, including the Cleveland International Film Festival. So was there a particular inspiration behind that?
Well, Jon and myself, and also Terry Gear, who's also the other third of Maple Films. Like, it's the 3 of us that usually go in on these projects together. We had talked about, we're all really into sci-fi. We've got a soft spot for that kind of stuff. I had come up with a basic idea about a guy working in an observatory who starts to see that stars are disappearing from the sky. It was just a real basic idea, and I bounced it off Terry and Jon, and they both liked it. And then Terry and I started working on a script for it. And true to Maple Films form, it took us like a year to actually write the script for a 20-minute film. So once we got it actually written, we were happy with how it turned out. We started casting. We pulled a crew together and shot it in June of 2014. So it was a couple of years ago now we actually shot it. But yeah, we were inspired kind of, I think I would say The Twilight Zone was a big inspiration for that one. We wanted to make it feel like a cross between Twilight Zone and maybe like a Spielberg movie from the 80s, like dark sci-fi kind of.
Along the vein of Stranger Things type.
Yeah, Stranger, but we beat him to that. That was like 2 years before Stranger Things came out.
And you, when we went out to dinner, Dustin, you were talking about Stranger Things, and I watched it like a couple of days after that and went through all of them in like a day and a half. Oh, it's fantastic. I loved it. So now I'm jonesing because we're going to probably have to wait till next year till we get the next season. So
I want to work for those guys. I want to be like a director for one of their episodes now.
Yeah.
I'm watching this and I'm like, I would kill to make this show.
Now, with these side projects, how are you financing them? I noticed, I think on 20th Century Man, it looked like you guys did a Kickstarter campaign. So is that a common way to fund these, or are you just, paying things out of your own pocket?
Well, the only two films we had that I think cost any amount of money to make were probably 20th Century Man and The Astronomer. And for both of those, we did do a Kickstarter campaign. We have a little bit different strategy than most people will use Kickstarter for. Most people try to raise the money before they shoot, because obviously it's paying for the shoot.
Right.
We pay for our entire shoot and then ask for the money afterwards. But the advantage to that is you have all this great footage,
right? And
people can kind of we don't outright say in the campaign, by the way, this is completely finished. It doesn't matter if you give us money or not. but we were able to show all this footage from the film, and that gets people excited about it, and then they'll donate money. And both of those campaigns were resounding success. They more than paid for the budget of film, and that's part of the reason why we were able to get them both into so many festivals, is because that paid for all of our festival submissions. Yep. Then, so we're not making profit off of these. Every bit of money that we raised on those campaigns went back to refunding the production and then getting it out to festivals.
Right.
So
now, looking at your films, there is I feel like there is a kind of distinct Maple Films look. Do you agree with that? And is it something you've done on purpose and tried to develop throughout the years?
Yeah, because it's usually myself and John and Terry that are spearheading whatever new project we're working on, and we kind of have a similar eye for what looks good, and especially working on 48s, we don't really have time to storyboard or come up with shot lists. We're just kind of looking at the script and deciding where's the best place to stick the camera, where's the best place to move the actors, where should we put lights. And working on the 48s has kind of helped us gel even better as a team, because we have to think quicker with that kind of time crunch. But I don't know if you want to add something to that.
I mean, there's definitely motifs that we have, and all our films, like most films, always have like sliding shots, like especially towards the action, which is very Spielbergy.
We try to stay away from shaky cam, kind of look. I'm not really a fan of that. In fact, the older I get, the more inclined I am to just keep the camera on a tripod or something like that. It's just me getting old, I guess. But the one thing we don't have is a shoulder rig, because we don't usually handheld the cameras. So we try to just keep, obviously we try to make it look as good as we can, but also, it also depends on what the script calls for. I think the one film that we did that actually did have a lot of handheld work was Undue Process, which was a 48-hour film we did in 2013 that had it was about two convicted felons who were on the run from like a vigilante mob, and since it was kind of like a chase film, we shot a lot of it handheld, but not aggressively shaky, just to give like a sense of frenzy and panic while they're running around. But for The Astronomer, since that was more of a old school science fiction thriller, I I think there was maybe one shot in that film that was handheld, but it was on a Steadicam.
Yeah.
So the rest of it was either tripods or dollies for that.
What do you think your biggest mistakes were when you were first getting started?
I don't think I made any mistakes.
Mistakes, gosh. Like looking back at some of our earlier stuff, I don't know. Sometimes I'll like look while I'm watching one of our older films, and I'm like, gosh, I would have done that differently, or I would have added a shot here and there, or maybe we cut away from this shot too quickly. I mean, you could split hairs on like things that we could have done differently, and I guess it's just a learning experience. Like on a technical level, I think we get better with every film that we do.
Well, along that vein, as far as like fixing films, like the way I see it is, and a lot of people have said this, is a film's never finished or just a point where you stop working on it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can always tweak and make something better, and
Right.
some people have spent millions of dollars doing that, George Lucas.
Yeah. We don't want to be,
but we don't
like
want to be
George
that.
Lucas.
So once something's done, I'm happy with the way it is usually.
And after a while, it's like, nobody's going to, you're the only person that's going to ever be able to tell the difference probably when you get to a certain point. So
like for the 48-hour films, we do end up making a cut after the fact, where we can take a little bit more time to go through the edit.
Yeah, usually audio suffers in 2 days. So
and fix a few shots. We do more color grading, maybe add a few effect shots, and just generally clean the film up more, because we're obviously so rushed to film it and edit it in one weekend. So those are usually the ones that we'll go back and just do like slight changes, but we've never had to actually reshoot or shoot new footage for any of our 48-hour films. It's just mostly in the editing room.
or post work.
Yeah, it's all post work.
Yeah.
Is there something in particular that you think other filmmakers frequently get wrong or mess up? Or like, what's a pet peeve when you watch somebody else's film?
Oh gosh, I could probably list like a ton of things. I'll let Jon go first, because he's the more critical eye than I am.
Well, Dustin and I have this thing where I guess I shouldn't put him in this too, where we can, with a lot of amateur short films, we can usually tell within the first shot whether or not it's going to be good or not. And the biggest two tells for me in that first shot is how clean is the sound? Like, is it like a DSLR microphone that's too far from the actor?
Real hissy. And
really
fuzzy.
hissy. And also how wide the shot is. Like, a lot of people shoot way too wide. I mean, shooting wide's fine if it's an establishing shot, but eventually you have to kind of get into your scene. But I've seen a lot of filmmakers, new filmmakers, if there's three people talking to each other, you see all three of them from one angle that's too far back for the entire scene. So
just not visually engaging right off the bat. So you have to grip the audience like immediately, especially with the short film, because you don't have much time to tell your story. You want to hook them right off the bat. So having like a really good looking first shot,
it's very important.
Is really important, and it pulls the audience into the story. I would definitely agree with the audio issue, because I mean, sound kills so many potentially good short films, because you're not always thinking of that when you're on set, like, let's just worry about getting the lighting really good on this shot, and we'll worry about sound after the fact. But that just ruins a lot of really good looking movies. It's not like you ever go into a theater to watch a film and the sound is bad. Like, even if it's a found footage movie like Blair Witch or Paranormal Activity, like they might have shaky video footage like Cloverfield, but the sound is always perfect, Mm-hmm. You don't think about that. The audience can kind of forgive
bad video,
bad cinematography or intentionally crude cinematography if it fits the story, but the audience will not forgive bad sound. So that's one thing I think that sticks out for me. Another thing is story. I'm gonna, like I said earlier, it's some people think that shooting torture porn, guys abusing women in basements is a great idea for a film, but to me that's just cliche and it's kind of boring. And like if you're not bringing anything new to it, it doesn't stick out to me at all. And I think that.
And if you follow our team on a 40-hour film project, I think our workflow is very different from a lot of other teams. Like I've noticed a lot of teams are super ready to start shooting on a Friday night, but usually on a Maple Film shoot, on a 40-hour shoot, we're still writing a script up until Saturday afternoon. We haven't shot a single thing. So. But that's because until the story's good, we'd rather not make the film at all if the story's going to be bad. So we'll wait till we have a good script, usually even a good ending, until we start even roll the first scene.
It just feels weird, like when we've always had to rewrite our scripts, especially for 48s, but we always have to do revisions until they get where we're happy with them. And it just feels weird, like thinking about, like, if I were to shoot like the first draft of any script that we got for the 48, like, I don't think our films would be nearly as good, because it's just, there's something missing, or it just doesn't work quite right, and I don't want to start filming something that I'm not like 100% behind.
Right.
I just have a few kind of rapid fire questions before we let you guys go.
Sure.
And you can both answer, or one of you can answer, whatever you guys like. So first, what's your favorite film?
I don't have a good answer. I really love Star Wars as a whole. That's kind of nerdy and cliche, but
I can give you a top five right now.
I actually, my favorite.
I actually have my top 5 list right behind me.
Oh, you do?
Number 1 is the whole Star Wars saga, like especially like the original, but I lump like now 7 films, but I lump them all into like one slot. And after that is Lord of the Rings. Number 3 would be Back to the Future.
Oh yeah, that was good. That's good.
Then The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and E.T. Like, I love E.T.
I love E.T.
My son's name is Elliot.
Oh.
Because of that film.
Yeah, no, well, for me it is. Not my wife wouldn't say the same thing.
Hey, well, my son is named Tyler from Fight Club. It's one of my favorite movies. So
That's awesome.
That's awesome. So I get it.
So I guess the short answer to your question is we both like Star Wars. That's it.
We do, and I also can't pick favorites, so I don't have a good answer for that.
No, it's tough sometimes. If you could model your career after one person's career in film, who would it be and why?
At first, I would say Steven Spielberg, because he's like
the guy.
Yeah, he's the guy, but lately I've been getting more and more into David Fincher. I just love his style and like his look for his films. So I'd say that a cross between the two. I know they're like completely different types of filmmakers. Like Spielberg's into the warmer, fuzzy type of filming, especially his earlier work, and David Fincher, like Fight Club and Gone Girl, he's really into the dark stuff, but like somewhere in between is where I'd like to be.
I think if I was more into directing, which I'm not, I'm usually the cinematographer and the editor, but I really like Wes Anderson's quirky style, and that's kind of along the vein of like the weird videos I would make in college just for fun.
Right, yeah. And Terry would say the same thing.
Yeah, Terry is very Wes Anderson inspired.
I love Wes Anderson too. That's like my comedy side.
And you'll see, at least in one of our films, Super Pimp, you'll see at least one Wes Anderson
style
inspired
reference, yeah.
Style reference.
We like Edgar Wright too.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He did like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, those films.
Oh, yeah.
Scott Pilgrim, like very stylish director. So
visual comedy.
Yep.
How about a favorite piece of gear that you can't live without?
Can't live without? I have a favorite piece of gear, but I could live without, and that's our Phantom 3 professional drone. It's just fun. It's an awesome toy, basically. But as far as what I couldn't live without, a Steadicam or Movi of some sort. Like I love having nice fluid stabilized shots. That's my thing.
Gosh, I mean, I'd say just a good basic 2.8 kit lens. You know, something like a 24-70 is going to get you really far, especially if it's a 2.8.
Yeah.
Right.
That can get you a lot. So for gear wise, I'd say just a really solid lens.
Are there any software or app that you guys use? And it doesn't necessarily have to be for film production. I mean, you know, is there something you really love, like for writing or for finding films to watch or keeping yourself organized?
Well, for editing, I love Premiere. Adobe Premiere is like my favorite program, followed by After Effects. Like, I love to do a lot of graphics work in that. So those two programs together, they're a ton of fun to work in.
Mm-hmm. And I like Final Cut, and I'll work in Premiere when people make me do it. And as far as writing, we all use Celtics, which is a free online app, which formats your scripts the way they're supposed to be formatted and looks professional, and it's free, so
why not use
anybody can use it.
Right. What is something you believe about filmmaking that would surprise people?
Something we believe about filmmaking that would surprise people.
Yeah. Or is there anything that you guys do that would surprise folks? I know, like, Jon, one time you mentioned about, I think, making a rough cut in Final Cut X because it was faster.
Oh, well, that's why I prefer to use Final Cut, because I do feel it's faster, at least with me behind it. Not sure where I was going with that, but I mean, in 40-hour films, we're making rough cuts everywhere. I mean, with Undue Process, I made a rough cut sitting on the floor of a parking garage, so you have to be mobile with those. But I mean, I think Final Cut editors' common argument for Final Cut is that it's faster, but for the people that hate it, it's because of everything else that they dislike about it.
It's like the Canon Nikon argument. Everything's backwards and everything's different. So
I think it's more of an Apple PC argument.
Right. I don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer to that question.
How about one final question? If you could offer one piece of advice to a filmmaker just starting out, what would it be?
Find a reliable group of, maybe 4 or 5 friends or other filmmakers that you can go out and shoot with, and just mess around, like make
lots and lots of movies.
Yeah, they're gonna start off really stupid. It's like I think the first film I ever made was I was probably 14 years old, and I was making a horror film with my sister's Barbie dolls. And here I am now. So it's you got to start somewhere, I guess. Eventually I got real actors. I didn't have to rely on Barbie dolls anymore.
I mean, we said earlier we don't like to make films unless they're worth making, but I think starting off you should not go by that. I think if you have an idea, do it, and if it's horrible, it's horrible. Then your next one will be better. I mean, I made probably 60 goofy little short film videos in college that most of them are junk, but it gave me the experience to be picky later on. And
I guess another thing too, if you're trying to be an all-around filmmaker, which especially if you're an independent filmmaker, you kind of have to be. You can't just be a director, or you can't just be a camera guy. Like, if you want to actually get a leg up and become successful, you got to know how to do multiple roles, like writing and all that sort of stuff. Watch other people's films, short films that have gotten into festivals, that have won awards. Watch critically acclaimed movies, and then watch bad movies too, and try to distinguish what makes Raging Bull so good and what makes, say, Beverly Hills Chihuahua so bad. You know, you can say that, oh yeah, Raging Bull's a good movie and Beverly Hills Chihuahua is not, but why is that? You know, it's not just because Robert De Niro is a good actor and no one likes to see CGI Chihuahuas in a movie. There's other reasons for that. You know, I'm kind of being like dramatic, but what makes a good film work and what makes a bad film not work? And again, a lot of it goes back to story, because if you don't have something that's engaging the audience, like for example, the last movie I saw in theaters was Suicide Squad, and that was not a good movie because it had a horrible story. They had a ton of talent in front of the camera, lots of really good actors, and they did a pretty good job, but you could tell that there just wasn't a good story to suck you in. And compare that to a similar movie like Guardians of the Galaxy. It was the same kind of idea, but it worked because it made you care about the characters, it had a good story, it was easy to follow, and it was enjoyable. And that was everything that Suicide Squad wasn't, to me at least. I mean, people might argue that, but I feel that movie did not work for a reason. But yeah, I guess that would be my other advice, is just try to distinguish what makes a good film work and what makes a bad film not work, and try to apply it to your own work. Cool.
Do you guys have anything going on or coming up that you would want to pimp out?
Well, I recently worked on a 48-hour film this summer in Cleveland. It was for Family 13 Productions, headed by Robbie Puzzatello, who also was a graduate here at Kent State University. We shot the film, I think it was 2 weekends ago or something, and turned out really good. We had a silent film was our genre, and hopefully, if this is going out sometime next week, hopefully we'll be playing at the Best Of screening next, I think it is Thursday, right?
Yeah, the 25th.
All right. So hopefully we'll be at the Best Of screening next week. I think the film turned out really well, and looking down the road for the rest of the year, I'm hoping I can get at least one or two more shorts out of me before the baby comes.
Stay tuned.
Where can people go if they want to learn more about you guys personally or your films? Is there a website or Twitter or anything like that?
Yeah. We have a Facebook page. It's just Maple Films. You could type that in. You'll see it's like a leaf logo. It's our logo for our company. And then we also have a website. It's maple-films.com. Like there's a hyphen in between Maple and Films. I tried getting maplefilms.com, but some guy in England is squatting on that on that domain, so I can't actually use that URL. Tried contacting him, but he wouldn't go for it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for doing this. I appreciate it. I'm going to I'll put together some show notes with some links, and then keep you posted on when this goes up.
Sure.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks a bunch.
Remember, if you want to learn how to make better films and act on camera, Guerrilla Film School has got you covered. We put together a free training video on how directors and actors can work together on set. You can get instant access to this free training right now by going to guerrillafilmschool.com/training.
He's gone.